So what were some key innovations that occurred during the evolution of vertebrates? Well, there are three general themes of vertebrate evolution. One, most vertebrates are considered to be extinct because when you look at the fossil record, there's a lot more diversity compared to what you see now. So, number two, some traits evolved more than once, so you see convergent evolution that occurred multiple times in different lineages. So, for example, the evolution of flight. You can see that it evolved independently in things like the pterosaurs, bats, and also birds. And three, you can see that traits are sometimes lost because evolution is not a progression from simple to complex. So not all the animals that are um, evolved are complex animals. So you can see that in things like the cnidarians. So these are very simple animals, right? But they're adapted to their environment, so they're able to survive. And also, it's not limited to the addition of new traits. So sometimes animals evolve by losing traits. And you can see that when you look at things like snakes, because they are a descendant from four-limbed reptiles. Or when you look at things like flatworms, like the tapeworms, they have no mouth or gut, right? Because they lost those traits because they're not needed for what they do, right? They're endoparasitic, so they get all their nutrients from their host. Okay, so here you can see a phylogenetic tree of chordates, and you can see that chordates begins here. So all of these animals are, I mean, sorry, not chordates, vertebrates begin here. Chordates start here. Okay, so the first couple of branches off of this tree for chordates are the cephalochordates, like the lancelets, and also the urochordates, which are the tunicates. Okay. So here, this is telling you that the urochordates or the tunicates are the sister taxa to vertebrates. Okay. So they're more closely related to vertebrates than than the cephalochordates. Okay. And also, if you look up here, the echinoderms and also the hemichordates, like the acorn worms. So, and this is based on molecular data. So that does tell you that the urochordates are the closest living relatives. Okay. Because initially it was thought that it was the cephalochordates that were the sister group to chordates. Okay. So also when you look at this tree from vertebrates, the first couple of lineages that you see up here are the hagfishes and also the lampreys. Yeah. So these are jawless fishes, okay, because they have no jaws. The hagfishes, so these are mainly these are they can be scavengers or predatory. Okay, but these animals have no have a they do have a cranium, but they have no vertebrae. Okay, and they also have no paired appendages. The lampreys, they do have a cranium, and they do have some pieces of cartilage along the nerve cord. Because if you remember the four traits that chordates have to have, they have to have the nerve cord, the dorsal hollow nerve cord, sorry, the dorsal hollow nerve cord, the notochord, the postanal tail, and the pharyngeal gill slits. So lampreys, these are mainly ectoparasitic, so they're mainly feeding on the fluids of fishes. So the jawed fishes are a grade that includes four major living lineages. There's the cartilaginous fishes, the ray fin fishes, coelacanths, and lungfishes. So jawed fishes or jawed vertebrates are also called the gnathostomes, and the jawless fishes are called agnatha, or they belong to the group Agnatha, meaning that they have no jaw. Okay, so they do form a monophyletic group that includes 5 major living lineages. So you have the cartilaginous fishes like the sharks and rays, the ray fin fishes, okay, coelacanths, lungfishes, and also tetrapods. So these form a monophyletic group, okay, for the jawed vertebrates or gnathostomes. Cartilaginous fishes, they have jaws that are made of reinforced cartilage, okay, so, and not bone. So when you look at a shark, at the skeleton of a shark, it's all what remains is the cartilage because they have no bone. And the fossil evidence disproved the shark-like origin of the jawed fishes. So initially, it was thought that the first jawed fish was more shark-like. Okay? But instead, the jawed fishes that showed up early in the Silurian um, were these armored fishes that included the placoderms. So these are fishes that had heads covered with bony plates or bony shields. So the appearance of the jaw bones, or after the appearance of the jaw bones, you also saw that teeth appeared in the fossil record. And this was the evolution of jaws was significant because it allowed for different feeding habits. Okay. Other traits that also appeared were like the paired fins and internal fertilization. The feeding strategies had a rapid diversification once the jaw originated. So for ray fin fishes, the jaw is protrusible and they can be used to bite food, right? And also to suck in food. So especially on the water, when a fish, opens its mouth, that creates a negative pressure that draws, water in. They also have a second specialized jaw called the pharyngeal jaw, and these consist of modified gill arches that are located towards the back. So these just make, processing food more efficient. Yeah. So things like this made were major innovations, okay, leading to dramatic radiation of fishes. So one hypothesis for the origin of the jaw um, proposes that natural selection acted on developmental regulatory genes that determine the gill arch morphology. Okay, so in other words, that the first jaws derived from modified gill arches, or the first gill arches, and then mutation and natural selection increased the size of the most anterior arch and modified its orientation slightly, producing the first working jaw. So here you can see the placoderm. Okay, this is what it looks like, and it wasn't that not too big of a fish, but you can see some of the homologous structures that are found in placoderms that are also found in humans, right? So you can see like the bones, like the dentary, also known as the mandible for humans, uh, the maxillae, and also the zygomatic bone. Okay. So these are structures that are also found in placoderms. So the cartilaginous endoskeleton began to be stiffened by the deposition of bone. And unlike the dermal bone that had evolved earlier and was derived from the neural crest cells, the bony endoskeleton was mesodermally derived, and they aided in swimming movements. So there are three living lineages of bony fishes. There's the ray fin fishes, the coelacanths, and the lungfishes. Okay. And here the bodies are covered with interlock, interlocking scales that provide uh, a, a stiff but flexible covering. And for the lobe fin fishes, so that includes like the coelacanths and the lungfishes. These are independent lineages, but they are often grouped into this group, the lobe fin fishes. Okay. And these are important because they show the a link between fishes and tetrapods. Now we're going to look at the origin of lungs. So initially, it was thought that lungs might have appeared first in lungfishes, but it was later discovered that the lungs appeared earlier, and they appeared in the placoderms. And it's believed that they originated as an auxiliary source of oxygen for the heart. Okay? Because in the fish circulatory system, you get the heart pumps the blood, it takes it to the gills where it gets oxygenated, then it travels throughout the body to feed the tissues and tissues, muscles, organs. Then it comes back to the heart, deoxygenated. Um, that limits the metabolic activity. Okay? So for the lungs, these are thought to have derived from out pockets of the esophagus. And the origin of lung hypothesis predicts that early fishes filled this space by gulping air from the surface or by secreting it from the muscle tissue within. Okay. But you can see that lungs were lost in cartilaginous fishes like sharks and rays. And then in ray fin fishes, they were co-opted into a gas bladder. So this is the thing that prevents uh, fishes from, you know, from sinking. Okay, so we'll pause here, then we'll continue with origin of limbs.